All right, hello everybody. This is Joe Johnson, and on today's episode of Man Up TV, I have Dr. Alexis Shields here with me. She's a naturopathic doctor who is originally from the great state of Wisconsin, like myself. Go Packers!
Actually, my family is, but I'm there very often.
Okay.
Extended family.
And now she is traveling around the world, helping people over Skype, as I am doing with clients. So, very happy to have you on today, Dr. Alexis. Welcome. So first off, can you just talk a little bit about
Thank you.
yourself and
Thank you.
how you got into being a naturopathic doctor and kind of your journey to get here?
Yeah, so I went to school in Portland, Oregon. There's a naturopathic medical school there, and as a naturopath, you go to a specific school for naturopathic medicine, which trains you to be a primary care doctor. So we can prescribe medications, do minor surgery, order lab work, everything that your kind of general doctor would do. But our whole focus is to help people get away from the need for unnecessary drugs and surgery when that's possible. And so we're learning different natural medicine techniques, and extensively we learn diet the entire 4 years that we're in school, or we study nutrition basically, and learn how to appropriately use vitamins and minerals and homeopathy and herbs and lots of other natural methods for healing and traditional methods for healing. So I went to school in Portland for 4 years. And then after that, I set up private practice in Portland for 4 years. And I originally got into naturopathic medicine and found out about it through my dad, who had gotten really sick and started looking for alternative medicine to help him through a liver transplant. And he found a naturopathic doctor that was also trained in Portland at the school that I went to, who pretty much saved his life and really turned things around for him. And so through his healing journey and through what I saw him go through, it really changed my course from conventional medicine school to going to naturopathic school. And doing that was the best decision I ever made, because it totally changed my health and made me really realize all of the things that I had to work on with my own health. So pretty much completely changed my life in so many ways. So I would say 2 years ago, my fiance and I, who's also a naturopath, started talking about traveling and, getting closer to family eventually, but also just seeing the world together. And so we moved to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, for the last 9 months. And we're actually started doing online consultations and building up that. So that's kind of been what we've been doing for the last 9 months, and it works extremely well, because what I do can be, easily done over Skype. I still can order lab work and analyze it and work on changing diet and lifestyle for people, and as well as guiding people in different, health programs. And so it's been amazing, because I can really reach so many more people, being more location independent than I could when I was in Portland in a brick and mortar practice.
And you mentioned lab work. That's something that I find is really important that most people don't know about, is that the lab ranges, when you usually go get blood work done, are very broad, which is not really what you want for optimal health. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. It's a really good point, and it's a huge thing that I do and that I focus on, because lab ranges, the way that they're developed is it's all in a bell curve. And so they take a group of so-called healthy people, and they see what the general population, what their healthy levels are, and then they create this bell curve to create what their lab ranges are. But the problem is that the people that are coming in and getting lab work done usually have health problems. And so this collection that we're getting of so-called healthy people are not always healthy people. And so these ranges, end up being very broad. And it's true, you can be, let's say a range for some unnamed test is from 10 to 100, which, that's not uncommon to have this really huge range. And even if you're in that very end at the 10, you can still be considered normal and they won't do anything about it, or the doctor may not even mention it to you that it could be a problem. So what I do is I have optimal ranges for labs so that I can catch things early. You can draw different patterns from blood work that help you to realize something that may be in the process of becoming a problem, but it's not yet. Or maybe you're seeing some signs of, of things being out of balance, but it's not quite showing up 100% in the lab work yet. So it's a way of looking at lab work from a very functional perspective and being more concerned with optimal health than just, waiting until down the line when something, gets really out of balance.
Mm-hmm. And now those optimal ranges, is that something a guy could find himself online, or was that something that he might have to want to consult with you or another functional medicine doctor?
Yes, some of it can. A lot of it is really through a functional medicine doctor who has experience looking at a lot of lab work and knows kind of what those lab ranges are. When I work with somebody, I have a whole kind of spreadsheet that I plug their numbers in that shows them, where they are in that range. Are they in the optimal range? Are they kind of outside of that optimal range where we need to start paying attention and looking for patterns of why that's becoming out of range? Or is it, completely outside of the lab range? So for me, these functional lab ranges is really, it's through experience and being able to look at things in a more holistic view. And so when you don't have that kind of perspective or training when you're looking at a lab test, it can give you some misinformation because it's really from an experience of looking at a lot of people with these tests.
Right. And yeah, what I find is that most people, their doctors will tell them that their lab tests are normal, but pretty much everybody has some sort of values that are out of range when looking at the functionals.
We all have our weak areas, and with being in a chronically stressed out society, even if you don't feel stressed, I guarantee you that stress is affecting your life in some way or another, because it's not just mental, emotional stress, it's stress from all the toxins in our environment, and the food that we eat maybe not be the highest quality all the time, and just everything. We're bombarded by stress, and our adrenal glands, which are these little tiny glands that are not meant to be bombarded with constant amounts of stress, are, they have a big job to carry out, they can basically burn out. And so yeah, I think there's a ton that we need to investigate there when I'm working with somebody.
And what, you mentioned all these stressors. What do you think are the most toxic stressors, whether from food or environment or anything else?
It kind of all contributes because there's so many different areas that you can find, different stressors. You have the mental emotional piece, the toxicity piece, and, just from having deficiencies. So like you were, talking about with blood work, you can see some of these underlying deficiencies that start to develop. And when you have like a chronic deficiency of magnesium, that affects every cell in your body that needs magnesium. When you're chronically dehydrated because you don't drink enough water, that's another stressor. And so we all have these areas, these weak areas that start to show up in lab work, that when you got too much stress coming in and your body can't handle it, you develop symptoms, and that's your body's way of communicating to you that there's a problem. And sometimes that shows up in blood work before you really know that there's an issue with symptoms.
What do you find is the most common deficiencies for people to have? You mentioned magnesium and water are definitely two big ones. What are some other ones that you see a lot of the time?
Coming from the Pacific Northwest, when I was practicing, vitamin D is just is huge, and everyone's talking about it, and so it's clearly it's a huge worldwide problem. Really, it's not commonly tested if you go into primary care doctor unless it's a very forward-thinking doctor. A lot of people are not testing it routinely just for optimal health or preventive medicine. So it's something that I think everyone should have tested every single year. If you have chronic illness, it's almost guaranteed that you have a problem with vitamin D. If you have an autoimmune disease, it's guaranteed you have a problem with vitamin D, and converting it from sunshine, or converting vitamin D from getting sunshine is where we should be getting it. But a lot of health problems and stress and things prevent that process from happening, or maybe you don't even get enough sunshine, which is very common. So vitamin D is hugely deficient because there isn't that many places that you get it, and we're indoors for too many hours out of the day. Magnesium, all the trace minerals are definitely deficient in our soil now, and so our food is not getting enough minerals. So magnesium and zinc and all the trace minerals, potassium. We get plenty of, most people get plenty of sodium, but other than that, there's, a lot of trace minerals and magnesium that are deficient.
And where do you like to see people's vitamin D levels?
I like to see, for optimal health purposes, I like to see somebody between 60 and 90. And it depends on the lab, but sometimes those lab ranges will say anything above 30 is normal. Sometimes they'll say anything above 20. They're tending to raise them up now, which is good because they know how important vitamin D is. We didn't really know all the functions of vitamin D, and because it's studied so intensely now, they're finding out, that vitamin D has very much like a hormone effect, and so it affects every cell of your body and how important it is. So they're raising it up a little bit, which is good. But somebody with a vitamin D of 20 or 23 might be told that's good, but really it's not supportive of optimal health, which is what we're all trying to achieve here. So, I would say much higher than the standard lab range.
And I see a lot of people that are taking, 400 units or 1,000 units a day, and they're like, yeah, I'm getting my vitamin D in, because they've heard so much about it, but, really they might need 10,000 or more than that,
I mean, some people definitely need very high doses of oral vitamin D to get them into that range. And it's very important to test your vitamin D because you can take too much, and so it's important to know how much you need to take. It's very rare to actually take too much. There's not that many cases of there being vitamin D toxicity caused by supplements, but yeah, it's something that should be tested because you need to know what dosage you should be on, and more than likely than taking too much, you're not taking enough. So 400 IUs is not cutting it for an average person who's indoors a lot of the day, working inside and not getting regular sun exposure, needs at least 2,000 to 4,000 IUs a day.
And even if people are thinking they're getting sun, like you said, they might have problems with the vitamin D receptors converting that sunlight into vitamin D.
They can't convert it, or they're wearing lots of sunscreen and it's blocking that whole process, which is also a problem. Or the darker your skin is, the more sun exposure you actually need because your skin will reflect the vitamin D. So you need, there's so many factors, but in general, people need much more sun exposure and sun exposure without sunscreen than they think.
And then with some of the other things, magnesium and zinc, potassium, things like that, is that something you recommend people supplement with, or?
It kind of depends. Those are very depend on what your health situation looks like, what your, lab levels of those minerals look like, what your health issues are, symptoms, there's different symptoms that kind of go along with different minerals. It's not something that you really, if you eat a very healthy diet with lots of organic fruits and vegetables, and you're not eating lots of foods that leach minerals from the body, like tons of legumes or nuts and seeds, things like this, then it might be that you get plenty of, minerals in your diet. But if you're somebody that has headaches, for example, or leg cramps, or you get Charlie horses very frequently, especially headaches and migraines, those people tend to have, magnesium deficiencies and lots of other mineral deficiencies, but magnesium is a big one.
What are some of the more common symptoms of some of the other minerals, like a zinc deficiency or potassium?
Zinc deficiency, having a poor sense of taste or smell. I find a lot of people that, there's a lot of people that don't like the taste of vegetables, or they they say, you know, when you tell them to eat more vegetables, they look at you like, oh God, that's going to be terrible because I hate them. If somebody that doesn't like the taste of food or vegetables, probably there's something going on that's causing that to be more intense for them. And that's something that I've seen. There's probably no studies to prove this, but just from experience with patients, I see a lot of people that have a zinc deficiency don't like the taste of vegetables, or they're very picky with flavors. Why that is, I don't know. But it seems that when you start to replenish zinc in their body, that becomes less intense. So that can be one of them. And then for men especially, having issues with prostate health, skin health, acne, that can be a zinc issue. I mean, there's like a never-ending list of symptoms, but those are some big ones.
What about potassium?
Potassium is kind of along the same lines as magnesium. You can see lots of cramps, any kind of cramping issue, whether it's with women in their menstrual cycles or cramps in the feet or legs, getting Charlie horses, getting restless leg. Those go with potassium and magnesium. That's kind of like the main symptom. But any kind of mineral deficiency can really mimic so many other things. So it's kind of, you know, investigating what someone's diet is and looking at their diet, seeing where their nutrition is coming from. Also, if you have like a standard American diet where you eat a lot of processed foods and things, you're definitely not getting enough of trace minerals because you're eating food that's been sterilized. That's been sterilized so that it can last on the grocery store shelf for a very long time. That takes out all the nutrition. It's, you know, you're eating very nutrient deficient food, so you can be guaranteed that all those minerals are low.
And what do you find, what are the most important foods that you recommend people be eating?
I would say the things that are most commonly overlooked are kind of, I mean, people are becoming so much more aware and well educated on food. I think today, you know, nutrition has just blown up and people are super interested, much more interested than I think they were like 10 years ago. But there's these, you know, common nutrition myths that have seemed to kind of permeate popular nutrition, and there's been a lot of, you know, stuff that has come out to kind of disprove these, but things like that fat is bad. And so, you know, we think that eating fat makes you gain weight or makes your cholesterol go up, and nothing could be further from the truth. And so I think some foods that are really important to eat are good, healthy fat, because it's so important for our brains, for our hormone health, for protecting our body from all the toxins that are coming in, which we can't really avoid. You can try to limit your exposure to toxins, but you can't avoid everything, right? Because it's in car exhaust, it's in the soil, it's in everything. It's in the water we're drinking chlorine and fluoride. And so we're kind of bombarded with all of these things. So if you eat really good, healthy fats, which are things like avocados, coconut oil, olive oil, butter from a healthy cow that's been eating grass like he's meant to eat, things like that are traditional, good, healthy fats, nuts and seeds, and animal fats from healthy animals. Those are very protective for your health. So I would say fat, which is not, usually when somebody says, what's the most important food or the best, nutrient dense food, it's usually like people go to these superfoods, like, oh, you really want to be eating this, this crazy berry that you can only find those things are great, but really people just need to go down to the basics. Like, what do you really need? You need good, healthy fats. You need adequate protein. You need lots of minerals from fruits and vegetables. You need, those are really the superfoods, honestly. That's where you get your superfood nutrition. Everything else it's fun and it's exciting, and, to find these things, goji berries and all these fun little raw cacao powder and all this stuff. Yeah, it's great. But it's only supplemental to, a really good, healthy diet.
So you mentioned eating healthy fats can help protect us against toxins that we might breathe in or taken from the environment. How does that work? How does that happen?
So fat actually is, we have a normal, healthy layer of fat that surround our organs, and toxins are where or fat is where toxins are stored. And so it helps protects our internal organs basically from excess toxin exposure. The other thing is cholesterol. Cholesterol and fat kind of go hand in hand when we're talking about this. And cholesterol is very anti-inflammatory, actually. It's very protective. It's where we get all of our hormones. It's where we build all of our hormones. And cholesterol also is kind of like the duct tape of the body. It's what floats around and helps to repair damage. And so if you're, inflamed from a toxic exposure to something, cholesterol is what goes around and it helps repair that damage. And so if someone has a very high cholesterol, for example, it's probably because they have a lot of toxic exposure or damage going on from inflammation. So just fats in the diet in general and cholesterol are extremely protective. You just have to be getting the right source, the right quality. For example, eggs. A lot of people are scared of eggs because they've heard they're high in cholesterol, even though that's been totally disproven in studies. But it's still kind of made its way into popular nutrition. And eggs, when they're from a healthy chicken, they are high in cholesterol, and that cholesterol is so important for our brain. It's important for our liver. It's important for everything. They're like little multivitamins, and so you definitely don't want to be scared of foods like that.
Right. Yeah. So not only is that cholesterol you eat is not going to elevate your blood cholesterol, but that elevated blood cholesterol is probably because of some other problem, some sort of inflammation or some sort of toxicity.
That eating healthy fats will help because healthy fats like EPA and DHA, fatty acids help to decrease inflammation in the body. So by eating those healthy fats, you're not only protecting your body from toxic exposures, because then those toxins get stored in fat and then released from the body when you're burning fat, or I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, healthy cholesterol if you're eating good, healthy cholesterol, it's not going to raise your cholesterol.
And are there any other supplements you recommend a lot of the time besides like vitamin D, magnesium, zinc?
I'm not a huge fan of multivitamins, and a lot of people would think, oh, you're a naturopath, you must always be on a multivitamin, and I'm not a fan of multivitamins in the sense that I don't think everybody needs the same thing. And so that's what I'm really helping people to determine by looking at their lab work is what does a multivitamin look like to you? Maybe your multivitamin is you need magnesium and vitamin D, but the next person, they're okay with those things. They need more, essential fatty acids and something else. And so, I think multivitamin would not be on that list. Vitamin D, for most people, they need extra, and they also need essential fatty acids. It kind of depends on your life situation, how much stress you're under, where you live. In Portland, Oregon, where we get no sunshine and it's always raining, it's really important for almost everyone to get vitamin D. In Southeast Asia and Thailand, where they use a lot of vegetable oil in the food, and it's kind of hard to avoid all of the time, it's really important to take EPA and DHA fish oil to balance out those fats. And so it kind of depends where you live, what your life situation is. But those are two of my big ones, is essential fatty acids and vitamin D.
And I know with the multivitamins, too, that people find a lot of times they're pretty poor quality if they're getting them from just a drugstore down the street or something. Is that what you find as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think your vitamin is only as good as the quality. It's just kind of like food. If you're going to the store and you're getting processed crap that has dyes and fillers and preservatives and stuff, it's not something that's supportive of health. And just because it says natural or supplement on the label does not mean that it's good for you. And a lot of the stuff that you find at Target and Walgreens and big box stores like that, the supplements are very poor quality. They're not well absorbed, and they're pretty much just go down the drain. So it's not something that I would ever recommend. I really tend to recommend supplements that are either pharmaceutical grade or just have really trustworthy manufacturing practices.
Do you have any brands that you like?
For
specifically?
for fish oil, I really love Nordic Naturals,
Hmm.
and I love that they're also available to the general public. A lot of the supplements that I use, like Thorn and Biotics and things, are usually only sold by medical professionals,
Hmm.
and that's the one way that they can really guarantee that it's the highest quality.
Hmm.
But for over-the-counter stuff, I love Nordic Naturals for they have a good vitamin D and they have good fatty acids.
Hmm.
They're extremely high quality, and the way that they test for mercury and different impurities in the fish oil is the highest and the
Hmm.
best.
I like that analogy too. I've never thought about it that it's like the comparison of processed food to healthy organic food is the comparison of these
Yeah,
processed supplements to like a whole food pharmaceutical grade supplement.
exactly. Yeah, it's just just because it says natural on the label,
Hmm.
supplements are just not well regulated, and you
Hmm.
can pretty much make any claim that you want and put it on a bottle, which is
Hmm.
really scary. And people can do a lot of harm by taking things that say natural on them.
Hmm. Because, like you said, everybody's such an individual. Something that might be good for one person might be more detrimental to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And taking the wrong forms of things, the wrong dosages,
Hmm.
taking something that is just, like for example, if you're a man and you go to the store just to get a regular multivitamin and you just get a general one on the store shelf and it has iron in it, that can be very toxic
Mm.
to a man who doesn't need iron in
Hmm.
general. A man who eats, protein or animal
Hmm.
proteins or red meat or whatever, in general, does not need iron in a multivitamin, and that can cause a lot of harm because too much iron in the body can damage the liver. So
Hmm.
there's things like that it's just important. Just like you would have a doctor prescribe, most pharmaceuticals, it's a really good idea to have someone who really knows what they're doing and has studied this to also recommend supplements for you
Hmm.
because there's a lot to it.
And like for men specifically, do you recommend donating blood or something like that to avoid kind of that
Um,
iron overload? Or?
if that is a problem, it's not a
Hmm.
problem for every man
Right.
to have iron overload. Although there are things like hemochromatosis and iron overload issues where there's a buildup of iron that happens, and giving blood and things can be life saving and amazing treatment for that particular person. But in general, the average man doesn't need to do something like that,
Hmm.
and they wouldn't get iron overload.
Hmm. And so, besides removing these stressors and toxins and eating the good quality food and supplements, are there any other specific practices you recommend for digestive issues? I know that's really an area of expertise for you.
Yeah, the more and more people that I work with digestive illnesses, and the reason why I got into that is because I have ulcerative colitis, and so I have um, you know, a huge desire to help people in that area because I've had to do a lot of work on myself
Hmm.
to help with that condition, and yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for digestive illnesses is the mind-body connection, and everybody ignores that. We all
Mm.
hear about mind-body medicine, but most people just associate that with natural medicine,
Hmm.
and it's not really just natural medicine. So taking supplements and changing your diet, and that's not really mind-body medicine. Mind-body medicine is incorporating things into your life that actually help your mind to improve your health. And so, like, for example, this is a really good example. Whenever they do a study for any condition, they have a control group where they have a group that gets the placebo and they have a group that gets the actual medication or whatever it is. Well, in every single study, almost, it's inevitable that some of the placebo group improves. And
Hmm.
they say that's the placebo effect, which is really, I mean, that's really impressive that just the belief that you
Hmm.
can improve your health improves your health.
Mm.
And for some people, that happens. And so it's not something to dismiss, because if you can simply believe that your health is improving and have it improve, then that effect is extremely important. And for digestive illnesses, it's like the single biggest factor, and it's always overlooked because your mental state affects your digestion. There's like one and the same. And so lately what I've been doing and I've been getting more into with people is developing different practices for helping to reduce stress, for identifying, identifying these beliefs that we have that are unhealthy, that, we have this person in our brain that's telling us things and going over unhealthy beliefs all the time. And so it's identifying what those are and finding ways to kind of, help your body get through that so that it can improve, so your health can improve. When you deal with that, and then you deal with other lifestyle and diet factors, it's really more of a holistic approach.
And for like digestive issues specifically, do you find it's that people are stressed, or there's certain negative emotions that correspond to digestive issues? Or
stress affects your digestion. Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Say that again. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just. Is it mainly stress, or it's a certain type of negative emotions that usually are associated with digestive issues?
It's different for everybody, but I think stress is a big one because a lot of people internalize stress. And, I work with a lot of women that have digestive issues, and I think internalizing stress is always a piece of that. And so, stress, mental, emotional stress, or, physical stress, or whatever it is, I think a lot of people internalize their stress and it goes to their digestive system and affects their health. I think that stress can, it can change your body ecology, it can change your whole microbiome and the way that your probiotics are reacting, and it can affect nutrient absorption. It can affect, how you break down your food. It's huge. So yeah, definitely stress.
And I'm sure it shows up in people with headaches that you see as well, and other conditions.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's that whole mind-body medicine, which I'm trying to develop, a more of a balance with when I'm working with patients, because it's so important for everything. I mean, your mind controls everything. And if you can really deal with that piece of the puzzle, then everything else works so much better.
And what's kind of your top recommendation for dealing with the stress, dealing with the mind-body piece that you recommend?
I mean, really the number one thing that I recommend for people is the thing that works for them. So I try to give people, resources of what resonates with you. Do you think that meditation could be part of that? Do you think that developing, like these daily affirmations could be a part of that? There's the, emotional freedom technique and tapping solutions and things that can also be a part of that. Maybe you need to start with something like acupuncture that helps move energy in your body and that helps you to process emotion. Maybe it's massage. Maybe it's, getting out and connecting with nature and going for hikes. It's so different and individual, but it has to be something that works for you and that you connect with. And so I try to provide a lot of resources, and also just, my visits with people are a lot longer than the average doctor. And so I get more time to get to know somebody. And so I kind of recommend things that I think that might work and help for them.
Yeah, so just like everybody needs an individual diet, an individual supplement regime for themselves, they each need an individual mind-body practice as well.
Theme here.
Definitely. And I mean, that's such the power of like naturopathic medicine compared to conventional medicine, is really it treats the person as an individual. Yeah,
I think, there is room for all types of medicine, and conventional medicine is really great at emergency medicine. If you get into a car accident, I don't want you calling me on Skype. That's not what I do. You need to go to a specialist for that. Yeah. They're really great at surgery. They're really great at using drug interventions when that's, the best course of action, the least invasive thing. And there are times when that's totally necessary. But there's also a lot of people who are concerned with optimal health and creating, a life that is the most balanced and prevents the need for drugs and chronic disease in the future, and, lessens the amount of acute illnesses that they have. And that's where naturopaths really shine, because that's, what we're trained in, and that's what we specialize in. We have all the tools for that. There's not those kind of tools in conventional medicine. they're lucky if they get one class in nutrition. Some medical schools don't even have nutrition classes. It's becoming more popular to have like an integrative, medicine approach in different medical schools, but it's just, they don't have the time for that. They're learning other tools and naturopaths do. That's our thing.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that everybody needs kind of individualized exercise, fitness regimen as well. But are there any recommendations you usually make to people around exercise and movement and things?
Yeah, the biggest recommendation is to move. And it sounds so simple, but we are, a culture that sits 12 hours out of the day. Like it's just, we sit all day long. We're sitting at work, and then we're sitting to eat, and then we sit in front of the TV, and then, we go over to a friend's house and you sit down, and we're sitting all the time, and we don't have, a lot of movement incorporated into our regular routine unless you have like that 30 to 60 minutes of exercise every day. But truly more than a specific and more often. So whether that means standing in front of your computer or incorporating more just movement in general, just walking, taking the stairs, that kind of stuff.
Right. So yeah, as much as possible. I've heard they're comparing sitting is like the new smoking. Sitting is like the
totally.
the next greatest public health challenge.
It's so true. I mean, yeah, it's not about incorporating that 30 to 60 minutes anymore. It's finding ways to stop sitting so much. Yeah.
Kind of just making walking and standing and movement more of a part of everyday life.
We don't, if you don't use your body and if you're not using movement, you're going to lose it. And that is, my great grandma, she lived until she was 99. And she said her biggest regret was that she didn't move and exercise more. And, there's a lot that I really remember that, because I remember thinking like, it's so true. If you plan to live until, if you plan to live into your 80s and 90s, you want to be able to move. You don't want to be confined. And the only way to do that is to have that be a regular part of your day, ongoing.
Right. Definitely. So tell me a little bit more about the work that you do. Why might somebody want to schedule a consultation with you?
Yeah. So, naturopathic doctors they are throughout the entire U.S. and a lot in Europe, and there's some in Asia, and there's more and more now, because there's a lot of schools in Europe and South America too that are training naturopathic doctors. We all have kind of different training, but there's a lot of us out there, but there's still not nearly enough. And so doing consultations virtually, which is what I do right now, I do them with a system that's sort of like Skype. Or I can do them via telephone, but I like doing it kind of face to face. It allows me to, reach people all over the world. Maybe someone who doesn't have access to a naturopath, or they have a busy life and they want to be able to just talk to a doctor from the comfort of their living room. And so what I'm doing now is helping people in that way over Skype with diet and lifestyle recommendations. We order lab work, pretty much like what you would do with any doctor, except for we spend a lot longer time together kind of going over what is this, what do you really want in your life? What is most important to you? And how can we get you to that point? So it's, really an optimal holistic health plan.
And what are the main types of health conditions that you help people with?
I do, because of my own history, I do a lot of digestive illnesses, headaches and migraines. And, I see a lot of women. And so that with that territory comes a lot of fertility issues. But digestive illnesses that's a huge part of what I do. Also, people that just have kind of these low-lying issues like thyroid problems or adrenal problems or issues with fatigue and energy and things that maybe haven't been diagnosed as something, but they know that there's a problem and they haven't been able to identify what that is yet. A lot of, women in the age ranges that I see are dealing with hypothyroidism, which is becoming huge. Men as well, and I see a lot of men. But I would say for, hypothyroidism for women is a much bigger issue. So yeah, that's, it's kind of, I see people for a very wide range of issues, but digestive and headaches and migraines are two areas that I specialize in, and I have personal experience in.
Great. Well, we'll definitely post a link to your website along with the show, dralexisshields.com, where people can, is that the best place for people to get in touch with you and find out more about you?
Yeah, dralexisshields.com, and you can click on there on the contact page and send me an email. I have a lot of people that are maybe looking for something like this, but they don't know if it's a really good fit. So you can always send me an email, and I will do the best that I can to point you in the right direction if I don't think this is something that would work for you, or if I do think that it would work, then we kind of discuss what that would look like. So yeah, you can definitely get in contact with me, and I have a video on there so you can get to know me a little bit more, and a video course that is actually in the process of being made, and so it's not quite ready yet, but it will be coming out soon, that will help you to learn different lab tests that you can do from home to assess your own health, which is really important, kind of learning the ways that your body tells you that there's a problem, so you can catch things early and know when you need to see someone, that kind of thing.
So last question I'll steal from Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Exec podcast. What are the top 3 things that you would recommend for people to kick ass and be awesome and be happy in life?
The top 3 things. So coming from like a naturopathic perspective, we'll do this kind of health related thing. So the number one thing is, our bodies are 60% water, so you got to drink water. There's just no way around that. If you do not drink water, you're going to be sick. So you might not be sick yet, but you're going to get there. It's just, there's no way around that. You got to drink water. And getting filtered water is preferred, something that isn't filled with chlorine and fluoride and stuff. So water, number 1. Number 2, we kind of talked about that whole mind-body connection. I think if you don't have something in place in your life that is helping you deal with stress, it's going to catch up to you. You have to have something help with stress. Otherwise, you're going to burn out your adrenals. It's going to affect your hormones. It's going to affect your thyroid, your fertility. It's going to affect your sleep. It affects everything. So definitely having something in place for stress is, you got to do that. And then the third thing is just standing more. I think if you stand more, you have better circulation, which means you get better oxygen to your brain, or you get more flow of oxygen to your brain, which improves your mood, and it helps you to stay motivated. And so if you're sitting all of the time, you're compressing all your organs, your body's out of alignment, you're not circulating, you're going to feel like a couch potato. And it's because you need to get up and you need to move.
Well, that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to get up from my seat. I'm inspired. Go back to my standing desk. But thank you so much, Dr. Alexis Shields. Thank you for being on the show today. It's been great connecting with you, and everybody can find you at dralexisshields.com.
You're welcome. Thank you.